Hey everyone, it's Foxx from modelmakingguru.com here, and welcome back to part 11 of our build of the 1/60th scale no grade strike Gundam. Right, hope you enjoyed those last three little Q&A episodes. They were very good fun to do. I do like doing those things. They are very good fun. The only downside is I never get any bloody work done because I'm having too much fun answering you guys, and therefore I end up having to just finish filming them and go off and do all the work I was going to do anyway. But I don't mind. It's all good fun. So, where are we up to? All the decals are now done. I have made a start on the paint chipping. I returned to the paint chipping. If you remember, I started doing the pink on the feet and then realised, whoa, I need to do this after I've done the decals. So yeah, so I've gone back to the paint chipping. I've done all the pinkiness. Let me just get some kind of focus going on here. There we go. Done all the pinkiness on the red parts, so these parts of the feet, the cockpit hatch and the main torso. That's the only red parts really. Just using that pink colour again. The white parts I've gone over, and I'll show you the colour in a minute, with a grey chipping colour. Now bear in mind this is just the first round of chipping. This is the initial base colour for chipping. There's going to be 2, possibly 3 different steps involved. So this is the initial colour. So we've got pink for the red parts. There's the torso, you can see. Not too much gone on. If you remember my Sinanju Stein, I got so carried away, but because that's a smaller model, it looked a bit over the top. On this, I've kind of done about the same amount, but because it's a bigger model, of course, the chips look smaller and it looks a bit less intense. Went to town on the side skirts, and I'm quite pleased with those. Again, it looks quite intense, but there's going to be loads of weathering and stuff to go on top of this, so it's not going to look anywhere near that intense. But that's all been done on here, like that, you see. Using the same principle that I started when I showed you when I started doing the pink bit, exactly the same. But I've got a white bits to do, so I'm going to show you doing some of the white in a moment. Blue parts I haven't done yet. I'm going to use a light blue for these as the initial base colour. Remember, there's more than one step. So I'm going to use a light blue on these. I did notice as well, because I just had to film this bit twice because I screwed up the first one. This was the cockpit hatch I did. Done the chipping on there, but look. Where's that decal gone? Lost my decal. You remember how I was saying in one of those Q&A videos that the reason you seal over your decals is to protect them because they can still come off even when they're dry? Yeah, that's exactly why. So I've lost a decal there, but I do have another one of these. However, I kind of like it with just one. It makes it look more interesting. So we're going to leave that one off. But yes, this is why when you finish your decals and your paint chipping, you then go over with another gloss coat. This is exactly the reason why, just to protect the decals. They're still really shiny, you can see there. It's shining like a diamond in a goat's ass. That will hopefully be sorted out with the gloss coat, and then all the other weathering is going to go on top, so I'm not too fussed. I'll just tell you quickly what you need. For the pink colour, it was just a red colour, so I've just used, this was Tamiya flat red. I can't remember the XF because I've covered it over, with some white in it just to lighten it up. For the grey colour that's going on the whites, I'm using Tamiya Sky Grey, which is XF19, again with some white added just to line it up a bit. It's got a slight browny mushroomy colour too, which is why it's got that kind of nice worn metal or worn paint look rather than just a grey colour, a bluey tone grey. So I quite like this mushroomy brown warm hue to the sky grey, so I actually added some white to that. Both of these have got some thinner in them just to make them a little easier to brush. You will need a very fine brush. I'm using my Citadel Artificer. Old joke because I use it for all my artificing because I like artificing. It's an old joke. But I'm going to keep making it because it's a dumbass name. It's a really, really good brush, but it's a dumbass name. And you will also need, and I haven't got one with me right now, I need to go and steal one from the kitchen, don't tell the mother, a Brillo pad or some sort of sponge type device, because we're going to do some sponging as well with the chipping, just for the little rusty spots. Now I said it's going to be a multi-layer chipping effect. This is the base colour, so red is the pink, white is the grey, blue is going to be a light blue. When we've done that, we're going to do a second coat. Then once all that's been done, we need to go over with another gloss coat varnish. And what I'm going to show you today is my new gloss coat product. You'll know from before now I've always used Pledge multi-surface wax. Future or Klear in other territories, or a million different names. I've used this for many years now. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. It's great to be airbrushed, great to be brushed. It's a kind of creamy colour. It's kind of this colour. It looks like white on the camera, but it's kind of a off-white, slightly grubby colour in this bottle. The new one, which I've just taken delivery of from the American land, is this Pledge Floor Care Finish 2 times more shine. 2 times more shine. I won't do that again. I've already made that joke before anyway. This is the new stuff. This is Canada and US only. Can't get it in the UK or Europe. One of the reasons most likely is that in Europe there are certain health and safety regulations that mean that the Pledge multi-surface wax has to be that creamy colour because children might drink it, because clearly children are idiots. They're no less likely to drink a creamy looking liquid than a clear liquid. I don't quite get that, but that's just, health and safety Nazis for you. So it has to be an off-white colour basically. This stuff, it's American, Canada, it's fine. It's a clear liquid. This is supposed to be closer to the original Future and Klear than the Pledge multi-surface wax. I'm going to be very interested to try this. It's supposed to be a bit more glossy, a bit tougher, just exactly the same to spray, but it's also supposed to give you better results when you're dipping clear parts into it, like canopies for planes. It's supposed to give you a better, glassier look. So I'm going to be giving this a try. It's going to be interesting to try this. I've got to decide whether to go to the hassle of painting a spare piece of plastic to do some tests on, or just just suck it up and have a go on this and see. I might do it on like the base of the foot or something just to see what happens. I'm going to be airbrushing it, so I'm going to be testing out that Pledge Floor Care Finish 2 times more shine. 2 times more shine. If you want to get some of this, I'm afraid it's US or Canada only, so you're going to have to go to eBay, possibly Amazon US. You are going to pay through the arse for it. Let's just be honest. You're going to pay an absolute fortune. If this is in the UK, you could buy this for about £5 or £6. You're going to pay $20 for this US, and then shipping on top, which from the US could be $20. So yeah, you're not going to get this cheap. This is going to be, if you're in the US or Canada, brilliant. You sort of go to the local store and get some. If you're not, yeah, you're going to have to spend some money. If you've got, like me, bottles and bottles of the Pledge multi-surface wax, I'm still going to use it. I'll keep it for things. But if this stuff really is the bee's knees, I might use this for the Pledge Floor Care 2 times more shine for the more intense coating of all the other things. Again, because I don't do shiny models, my gloss coating is usually purely utilitarian. It's just to get a gloss coat for decals and just to get a shiny smooth surface for pin washes and weathering and things. But we're going to give it a try. If it does give me more shiny, then I might be using it for things like, cameras and eyes to get that super shine. Back in a moment. I should stop wiggling my finger like that, shouldn't I? It's quite disturbing. I can't stop. My fingers. Go. Oh, God, don't you start. Right, okay, let's get cracking. Now, I'm not going to show too much of these because I've shown it in the other video with the pink, so it's the same principle. So we've got, like I said, for the white, we're using Tamiya Sky Grey XF19. I've put a little bit of thinner in the pot with the paint. I'm giving it a darn good shake. I'd kind of half used the paint in this pot, so it was spare. I take the lid. Now, because Tamiya acrylics dry out quite fast, you'll have to reshake it regularly. So if it starts to be a bit clumpy, just reshake it. And all we're going to do, get our very fine brush, in this case the artificer layer, because we're artificing. Get a little bit of the paint. And we're just going to go around edges. Edges? We don't need no edges, senor. I'm going to use the brush, not the tip of the brush, just the side of the tip of the brush. And initially, what I'm going to do on camera, is just touch it to some of the edge. Just to get that edge chipping. Not everywhere, not consistently along. Do it on camera, dear. Ooh, big splat there, but not to worry. If you make a boob, you can just take it off with your finger, because if you're quick. It's going to go along. Now, it doesn't show much there because it's dark. But what we'll do is, we'll do it here on this edge. Going over the decals, this is why you do the decals first. Remember, markings are supposed to be painted onto the vehicle. So if the paint chips off, it takes the marking with it. That's why you do the decals first. Okay, so that's going to do for that bit. Then what we want to do is build that out a little bit. So we're going to grip the brush a bit further down the handle, because then it maximises our wibbly wobbly handshake, because you want a little bit of shaky hand. And all we're going to do is just start doing some little chips. Just random. Just to suggest where the paint's come away. I can use the tip for this to get really small marks. And it looks darker now, but it'll fade a little bit as it dries. So don't worry too much. I'll go on this edge. I've got to lift this up, so apologies if it's out of focus. And we're going to suggest paint chipping up away from the edge. Now, it's really hard for me to do this on camera, because when I do it in real life, I'm just kind of relaxed and doing it. When I'm doing it on camera, it's really hard to get that kind of random natural effect, because I'm thinking about doing it because I'm doing it on camera. And what we might do is a little scratch perhaps. So let's get a little bit of tissue and just wipe the brush off. Wet your fingers and just do that to get the point back. I don't know if you saw that. Just wetting my fingers and getting the point back. And what I want now is a little scratch. So I shall, just using, almost not touching the brush to the surface at all, start a dot and just work it out in a straight line. And you could probably maybe not even be able to see that on camera, but that is a little tiny scratch. Almost not touching the surface at all. What I'm doing here, if you start getting clumps of paint on the end of the brush, just get it off with your fingers or on a piece of tissue. It's quicker just to do it on your fingers. And just build up the chipping. So I've got a lot to do on there. I'll crack on with the whites. Next I shall show you the blues. Back in a moment. Right, and now we have the blauen Gefahrten mit the Painten und the Chippen. Ja, das ist richtig. Right, I've decided what colour I'm using for the blue. I'm going to use one of my favourite Tamiya colours. Medium, put it on camera. Medium blue XF18. I love this colour. It's the perfect colour for Y-wing cockpits. There you go, there's a handy tip. Y-wing cockpit lids, cockpit frames. Right, so what are we going to do? I've added a little tiny bit of white to the medium blue. I'm giving it a darn good shake. And again, a little bit of thinner. Take the Liddengefahrten. You can see there I've made a boob and put this blue lid on the white paint. Yeah, I did that. Okay, exactly the same as before. Get your brush. I tend to, when it's clean, I tend to just lick it or stick it in my gob just to get a point. Dead simple again, as always. Just work around the edges. So for example on here, now this is really shiny, so apologies if it doesn't quite show up. Let's actually figure out what I'm going to do. Okay, let's do this edge. Oops, let's just fling it across the desk. So again, as before, just working away on the edges first. Again, not using the very tip of the brush for these edges. I'm just doing the brush at 45 degrees to the edge and just moving it like that, basically. Kind of like doing a dry brush. Same kind of principle. Let's put a little bit there. Or quite a lot, actually, would be okay if you want quite a lot. Now, I'm not going to put any here, because this is actually a seam line. I don't really want to bring attention to it. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. If it looks a lot like a panel line, I'll go in and add some more chipping later. Do a little bit on this edge here. You don't have to make that noise, but it's funnier if I do. And then we'll do some bigger Chippen Gefahrtens. So we'll try and figure this out. Probably got a bit too much paint on the brush there. Let me just get that off. Lick my fingers. Get the point back. And again, with these Tamiya paints, because they do dry out and clump up quite quickly, you have to reshake that bottle quite often. Okay, so now this may look very bright on camera, and it actually is, but It will lighten slightly, change as it dries. Getting quite big splobs here, so I'll have to get funky with that and work with it. Again, I can never do this quite as well on camera as I can off camera. Let's try and get a little streak or stripe. Sometimes little scrapes and stuff can just make the chipping look a bit more natural and take it away from being lots of little dots, and it becomes more like scratching and scraping. It just makes the eye think it's more natural. So rather than just these blobs around the edge, a couple of little stripes or things like that, just make it look a bit more like chipping and not quite like you've just painted them on. And when you do this, you will notice obviously you've got a glossy surface where you've gloss varnish, and then you've got your paint which is matte, and you might be thinking, God, it looks terrible, it looks like I've got big blobs of paint on there, it looks like there's relief to it and shape. That will flatten out as it dries, and once you've finished this, you're going to be gloss varnishing over again, and then weathering, and then possibly matte varnishing, so that will all go away, and this will blend in more as you matte varnish it, so don't worry too much. Just try and make sure that the colour you're using as the chipping is, in the case of like blues, reds and yellows, a lighter colour. This is for the first stage of chipping, a lighter colour, so this is a light blue. I didn't want to go for normal blue with white because that would look really bright. I wanted to go for the medium blue because it's kind of a dull, muted grey blue, and this just, the white I put in it just lightened it a little bit. So always go for a lighter sort of complementary colour. With the whites, again, you're really looking for a grey of some sort or browns, because metallic colours will just come out as grey anyway once you finish all the weathering, and anything else will look kind of weird. Unless, for example, you're building, say, I don't know, a World War II U-boat that has white paint on it. Traditionally, on U-boats, a lot of times the primer under the paint was red, so you do red paint chips. Think carefully about the colours you're going to use. If you're going to use a grey for the white, make sure it's a warm grey, not just a blue grey. So I'll go off and finish all the blue parts. For the greys, I'm probably just going to use, I mean, I might even use this again, possibly. It might be a bit too blue, so I'll figure out. These are just the normal, I can't remember what colour I used on these now. This is just German grey, not for the frame. We're not doing chipping on the frame, not at this stage, if at all. This is just for the parts I painted German grey, like the bit that goes on the back and the two sides on the front. I'll probably just use either a lighter German grey for those, but I won't show that because I've shown you this now. So let me go off and finish all that, and when I've finished that, we'll come back and do the next coat of the gloss varnishings, and we'll be trying out the Pledge Floor Care 2 times the shine. 2 times the shine. Right, that's all the chipping now done. You can see it's all done on the foot. You've seen that anyway. Done up the legs. As usual, I got a bit carried away and went to town, but because this is a bigger model, it looks a bit more subtle than on a St Andrew Stein, and once this has all been weathered and everything else, it should blend in quite nicely. So this is the first stage of chipping. I did a lot less on the head. Again, don't worry, it looks a bit extreme on camera. It's not quite as harsh in real life, but it is still reasonably subtle. What else did I do? The blue parts on the torso. Again, it looks more obvious on film than it does in reality, and it will blend away once the weathering goes in. So it looks a bit like a spotted teenager at the moment, but that will all blend in. The little hand guards there for the back of the manipulators. Quite cool. And like I was saying in the bit earlier on, sometimes a little scratch like that does just help it step up from splotches of paint to it looks more like chips and scratches. So little streaks and scrapes like that are a really good idea. So that was the first stage of chipping. Now for the next stage, we need to do little accents and little extra second colours. Now, what I said before, we're going to use a light colour on the red just because it'll stand out. We're going to use a brown colour for the whites, and I'm not fully decided on the blues yet whether we'll use the light colour or the brown. I'm not sure. Brown may disappear, so I'll have to do a test. But what we're going to use for the red parts, we're going to use this colour, AMIG 119, which is cold grey. It's a really nice colour to brush for chipping because it's really thin. It's not too thin that it's watery, but it's thin enough that you can do some nice little chip effects. So we're just going to take a little bit of the paint here, you see. Not too much, don't need a lot. I'm using a little piece of plastic as my palette because I ran out of little surfaces. Same fine brush as before, Just get it in your mouth to damp it. Get a bit of paint on there. And all we're going to do for this is really subtle and not everywhere, but we're just going to do bits inside the chips that we've already painted. Now it may look weird because you're thinking, why would you have a white chip inside a pink chip on something that's painted red? Well, again, it's just to give some variation and give some definition to these chips. And you don't have to do it everywhere, just in select places. And you don't have to do it all inside other chips. You can go to town and do other bits here and there if you want. It's just to suggest that maybe this is a layer of something. Let's get rid of that. Oh, let's keep it. This is something underneath that pink paint that's now been exposed separately. So we're going to do a few of these. Again, just go very small and slow. It may look weird, but again, once it's been weathered, it will all make perfect sense. So just every now and then, I say not as much as we did with the pink. I'm not going completely to town with this stuff. So I'm going to carry on doing this. I'll just get all the white parts done. So let me get this done, then I'll show you the brown on the white. So, back in a moment. Okay, now for the brown chipping. Now for this we are going to be using Shadow Rust AMIG 043, and what we're going to be looking at is to get an effect like this. This kind of rustiness. Now I know this isn't canon, I know this is usually in space and therefore wouldn't be rusty, but you know what? If this is a ship, then in Carl Sagan's words, it's a ship of the imagination.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe.
It's me just making stuff up. I'm not one for canon, so I'm just making this look like a machine of war that's had some shooty going on. It's had a tough life. It's not going to be as battered as a Zaku. It's just going to be... I could just do it as a clean build, but that's boring. It's really boring. So anyway, we're going to aim for this sort of brown effect. Slightly rust effect. Now when it goes on, it looks like ass, but when it dries, it starts to look like rust. And again, as with the other colours, once the weathering's gone on, it'll look spanky. I've only gone up really as far as this and some little bits here and there. I'm not going massively far. I'm not going to do this all the way over the whole thing. Just purely because A, it's a real pain, and B, I don't want to suggest rust everywhere. Like I say, it's not going to be a battered Zaku, so the legs and the lower legs and things are the bits that are going to be closer to the ground and the waters. So let's get this on. So, dead simple, same technique as before. I've already started down here. Dead simple, same technique as before. Get my little bit of painty. There we go. Get the brush, which is in a place. There it is. I just went to lick the end of the brush to make a point and I licked the wrong end. I got the wood end and it didn't taste good. So we're going to get a little bit of the paint on the brush as before, exactly the same, and we're just going to focus on the inside of some of the grey chips that I've already painted on, which you saw earlier. So let me just make sure there's actually some paint on the brush. And again, just focusing on the inside of some of these chips. I'm not really doing too much away from the chips themselves, apart from I'll show you on the bottom of the, towards the ankle where I did a minute ago. So let's just get some of these done, and I'm really just following the lines of those, just keeping it nice and simple. I'm not doing too much on these knee parts. Again, the higher up I go, the less I want to do. If this was a rusty old Zaku, then I'd do this all over, but it's not. So I just want to suggest it's been in some watery, wet climate. It's had some fighting going on. It's got some bare and exposed metal. And that's it. Because at the end of the day, like the old phrase goes, Gunpla is freedom. You can paint things however you want. And if Barbatos is 300 years old and battered, then this can be 300 years old and battered. In my mind. So that's all I really want to do on there. Just a little tiny touch. Nothing too major. On the bottom here, I did that technique where what I tend to do is just suggest a little bit of the line, because this is an edge. I've done a little bit here and a little bit here down this line, and then just filled it in, just to give the effect that the water collects down at this end perhaps, and then corrodes. I haven't got another bit I can show you that on that's the same. Arse, should have planned that better, but you get the idea. So I'll go off and do the rest of these brines, and then once that is done, I'm not sure what I'm going to do on the blues. I'm tempted actually just to leave them as they are without a second stage of chipping, just because it's kind of cluttered enough on there as it is at the moment. I don't really want to go too far with the chest and the torso, so I might just leave that as one layer of chipping, maybe a little bit of the white in selected spots, but we'll see. But I'll go off and finish the browns. To show you what the reds came out like, because I never did that. Put that somewhere. As you see, the reds were, again, I didn't go crazy with them, just here and there in spots. And again, this will all blend away once the weathering stuff goes on. Truth be told, once this has got, you know, not sure what I'm going to do on it, engine grime, streaking grime, dust, dirt, all kinds of stuff, then you probably won't even see any of that anyway, especially if I hold it out of shot like that, which is brilliant. I've not done the brown on here yet. I'll do a bit more brown on the feet because they're even closer in contact with the ground and therefore water. I never know what to do with the base of the feet. I never know whether to chip them, because that's where all the wear and tear is. Then if you do chipping, it just looks, I don't know, it never looks good to me. I'm tempted just to leave that as it is, give it some washes and deep depth, because that's going to get covered in dust and dirt. So I might not do any chipping on here. A, because you'll never see it anyway, and B, because I kind of like it just being dirty rather than chipped. Let's say it's some kind of special space rubber. Hey, it works in my mind, don't knock it. It works perfectly in my mind. Right, so I'll go off and do the rest. When we come back, I will have done all... Okay, right, the chipping is all done. As you can see on here, I'll show you the feet. I didn't do too much on the feet, just a few spits and spots here and there. I went to town on the legs a bit. See if I can show you the legs. Let's have a look. On the... Let's be out of focus now. Let's focus in on that. On the legs, I went a bit more to town because these are closer to the ground. I know they're close to, not as close to the ground as the feet, but I thought about doing more rusting on the feet, but it just didn't feel right. So on the shins here, I went to town on these corners. On the legs, I did a fair bit at the back, and I decreased it a bit towards the top. As I went further up the mobile suit, like the top of the legs I did a bit less, then the skirts I did a bit less. So really, after the skirts, I did a tiny little touch on the hand end of the arms, and then really nothing after that. So I really kept it minimal. I didn't want to go too crazy. And then on the blue parts, like I said, I didn't do any rust on there. I just did a few little touches here and there of the cold grey, just in a couple of places, just to make it interesting. So on the upper arms, there's none, and on the shoulders, there's none. There's no rust. And as you see, I did the white on the reds. Now, next step. Now all that's been done, all the chipping's been painted on. I'm not going to do sponging, because again, I don't want to go too far. I decided that might be a bit too much. I don't want it to look that battered. I want it to look a bit battered, but not that battered. Next step is the gloss varnish to seal all this in before we do all the weathering. Now, as you know before, I've used Pledge multi-surface wax, and we're going today to try my new product, which is the Pledge Floor Care Finish 2 times the shine. I'll keep making that joke, I love it. Now this is the first time I've used this. I've done a quick test. Now if you look here with your eyes, with all the eyes on your face, let me just focus on that for you. This is the original foot, and this has got a couple of coats of Pledge multi-surface wax. And as you can see, it's got a bit of a shine to it, but it's not particularly shiny. It's alright, it's just not brilliant. However, let me compare that to a summer rose. No, let me compare that to a summer's day. No, let me compare that to this one. Now this, I don't know if this will come out of camera because of the lighting, but this has had a couple of coats of the floor care finish on that bottom of the foot. So underneath that floor care finish is the same 2 coats of Pledge multi-surface wax. So a couple of coats of the floor care finish. Look at that, that is fantastic. Compare those two, that is so much more shiny. So what I'm going to do is get all the parts. Now all the armour's been chipped. I can go ahead and... I've not done the top of the foot yet. That's still the floor curve, the Pledge multi-surface wax. So we're going to get all the armour parts painted. I've taken all the armour off the inner frame parts because we're not gloss varnishing those. As you know, we can't do that. So what I will do, I'll set up the airbrush now and I'll show you how to use this new Pledge Floor Care Finish 2 times more shine. 2 times more shine. Dead easy, exactly the same as the Pledge multi-surface wax basically. So let me go and get the Sprayen gefahrten booth and the Aaron Brushen gefahrten and we'll do a little bit spraying. Okay, so here we are in the happy spray booth. I've got my Pledge overexposed floor care finish 2 times more shine. And I have decanted some into a small bottle. All we're going to do is take our airbrush. We're going to put some, use it neat, same as Pledge multi-surface wax, use it neat, don't dilute it ever. Stick some in the airbrush. Now this stuff smells fantastic. Whereas the Pledge multi-surface wax smells a bit kind of flowery and lemony, this stuff, it kind of smells like, I don't know, strawberry daiquiri perhaps, is a slight similar flavour smell it's got. It's weird, it's very pleasant. Right, let me turn on the blower. Use the compressor. Okay, so if you remember me doing Pledge multi-surface wax before, I'll show you how to do it. It's dead easy. This is the one that hasn't been done yet. So all you're going to do is first and foremost do a light mist coat, just to give some tack for the next few coats to grip onto. So you're not going too heavy, just a light misting, so you're not just putting the first coat onto, you know, the old coat. You want something fresh for it to grip to. Tell you what, this smells fantastic. Although, having said that, once I've finished, I will of course go and put my mask on and do the rest of the parts. Always wear a mask. Right, so it's got a light misty coat on there. I'm going to give it a little bit more. I'm going to give it some air, just to flash it off. Remember, we're doing this just to lock in the decals and the paint chipping. Lock in the decals so they don't come off, and lock in the paint chipping so it doesn't get discoloured by the weathering that comes up afterwards. So now let's go in with a heavier coat, first of two. And you can go quite a bit heavier here. Like Pledge multi-surface wax, this stuff does self-level, and it does so very well. It's going slowly this time. Trying to keep the airbrush parallel to the piece I'm spraying, just so it's all even coaty. It's a little more tricky to get into these recessed areas. I'm not bothered about the poly caps because this stuff won't do any harm to the poly caps. May make the joints a bit smaller, but then once you put your ball and socket joint together, a bit more air now. Once you put your ball and socket joint together, it'll remove any of the varnish that's getting in the way anyway. So I'm just giving it some air just to flash it off again. Okay, now we're going to go with our second coat and go a bit heavier again this time. A bit more generous. Man, this stuff does smell very nice. So you can see now it's quite a thicker coat. Kind of smells like bath time when I was a kid. Because I'm going heavier, I can afford to move a little bit faster if I want to. Now make sure to get it into all the little recesses. Go from different angles. I tend to be a bit more generous on the last coat. Move quickly with the big blast just so it's not pooling up anywhere. Okay, and that is done. Now if you do put too much on that you see it pooling up, this is just going to be left to air dry now. Let me turn this off so you can hear me. And knock the light. Now if you do put so much on that you start to see it pooling up somewhere, don't panic. If you say I did this and it was pooling up along here when I put it down, all I would do is take a little bit of tissue, a little corner of a piece of tissue like this, and as I've said before, I'd just touch it to the bulge of the gloss, and it would wick the excess off, and then you can go and leave that to dry. It, like the other stuff, it will self-level very nicely. It won't come out quite as glossy as it's looking right now. It always looks really nice, but once it's dried a little bit, it will level off a bit. You might get a little bit of orange peel, but it will lose a little bit of shine, so it's never going to look quite as good as that. But, as always, as I've said, this is a utilitarian gloss coat for me. It's not a case of getting a glossy finish. This is so I can do the pin wash for any panel lines and some streaking. Once we've done all the weathering on top, this will probably come up more like a matte or a satin finish anyway in most places. So I'll go and get the rest done. I'll get my mask on, because always wear your mask. It does smell very nice, but it's also highly toxic, so don't let the nice smell put you off. I'll go and do the rest of the pieces, and when we come back, I think I'll just show you how we've got on, and that'll do for this episode. So, to the time lapse. Okie dokie, so that's all the gloss varnishing done. My apologies, I did film the varnishing part, but the video didn't come out, so I can't show you that bit. So it's all done. Everything's gone on really nicely. You can see now, everything has this gorgeous shiny shine to it. It comes out a bit more shiny on camera than it is in reality, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. The whites came out quite nice. I don't know if it'll come out on camera. Let me just adjust the balance of the whites so you can see. So that came out quite nice. Some of the parts, the white parts with the rust and stuff, I can't remember which one it is now and I can't find it, but some of them came out looking exactly like an enamel pot, you know, like an enamel bowl where it's white and it's got some chipping on it, there's maybe rust underneath. That kind of enamel painted old white pot thing, it just came out just like that, which is weird. So all I could get in my head while I was spraying was, I'm making an enamel Gundam here. Enamel like enamel pots, not enamel paint, obviously. So yes, so really pleased, it's come out quite nicely. Blues, lovely, lovely. Now, if I was making a model car, this wouldn't be anywhere near glossy or shiny enough, so I'll probably have to put more on or maybe polish this. But for the purpose I'm using, like I said, it's purely utilitarian. It's just for my gloss coats, for my pinstriping and things like that. It will be absolutely fine, and it's protecting the decals and everything else. So, the next step will be starting the panel lining and the weathering. It's going to do it for this episode. Oh, there is one other bit I did need to mention. The grey parts, I didn't touch these. Not been glossed because they were dry brushed with oil paints, so that's still dry and that's going to take a few days to dry. They've been left. Once that's been dried fully, I'll gloss varnish these, and then when everything is done and all the weathering, what I'm probably going to do on these is do some little bits of chipping, but with metallic colours like silvers or aluminiums or something. The reason I'm not doing it until all the weathering's done is I want it to stay shiny. So it's a shiny accent point while the rest of the kit is matte. So I'll probably, one of the last things I do is put any chipping on these. But I'll get them, let them dry, get them gloss coated, and then they'll go onto the model as normal. And that chipping will be done right at the end. After, because these will be weathered as well, like everything else. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. As always, make sure to comment in the comments below or on the Facebook page or on the Patreon page. Let me know what you think. We will catch up in the next one when we'll start the panel lining and the weathering. I was debating whether to do a gunk wash, but I'm not going to because I want it to be kind of subtle panel lining. Go off and make cool things. As always, follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/modelmakingguru. I'm on the Twitters @modelmakingguru. If you want to help me continue to make these videos, keep me in kits and also equipment and things that I'll need, and make more videos so I don't have to go off and get a job, do consider going to my Patreon page, patreon.com/modelmakingguru, and pledging to help out. The more I get pledged each month, then the more I can not have to go and get a job, and I can make more and more videos and spend more time doing this, and do some more exotic things and things that I wouldn't normally do. So do consider. But thank you to all my Patreon supporters who are already supporting me. I love you dearly. But I also love all the people that aren't supporting me. I love you all the same. There are no favourite children. Thank you again. Take care of yourselves. Have fun. Go make something cool. Show me things that you've made. And as always, adios amoebas.